Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. No time to waste. Microbehaviors, leveraging the little things to become a better leader by Artell Smith, lays out practical strategies to help you put your best self forward, creating the right dynamic and honoring the people around you. Learning how to calibrate your microbehaviors will result in better relationships overall, with added benefit of driving performance in an organizational setting. You can't afford to waste your time or those of the people around you. Understanding and managing your microbehaviors will be a game changer. Artell is principal and managing director of WatchWorks Management Consulting, LLC, and adjunct instructor at the Center for Professional and Executive Development, University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Business, where he facilitates classes for managers, leaders, and executives. Artell has worked for several industry leaders in senior human resources and talent management positions over the course of nearly 40 years in business, including assignments as Chief Human Resources Officer, Chief Talent Officer, and Chief Learning Officer. And Artell Smith, author of No Time to Waste, Microbehaviors, Leveraging the Little Things to Become a Better Leader, joins us on This Week in America. Artell, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Rick, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure, and what a concept, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. Let's start with why. What motivated you to write this book, No Time to Waste?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I guess every author needs to have a reason, right, why they write a book. And for me, over the years, what I've seen frequently is that managers, leaders, executives can sabotage themselves by not paying attention to the little things when it comes to relationship building. And that little thing I've described as a microbehavior, which is really a very short interaction. It could be 30 seconds, it could be a minute, it could be 2 minutes, but it's generally the thing that precedes the meat of a conversation. Yet, when handled poorly, it can really damage relationships between those managers and leaders and their team members and others in their organizations.
So it's interesting. Oftentimes we're so concerned about the meat of the question or the statement we're about to make, what we're going to ask someone to do. We forget the introduction, the forward, the foreplay to get into that. So we sort of overlook that, I guess, is what you're saying.
That 100%.
Yes.
Really, it's not. In many cases, I would describe it as unintentional. The problem is, without intention, you can't start off in the right way.
You know, that's fascinating. We're so concerned about maybe asking for the raise or asking this employee to do something over and above. We forget about how we're going to lead into that ask. And that's what discussed in great detail in the book, No Time to Waste, Microbehaviors, Leveraging the Little Things to Become a Better Leader by Artell Smith, our guest on the program. Talk about the title, No Time to Waste. How did you come up with that title? I love that because it captures your attention right away.
Yeah, what my thinking about that is pretty straightforward. When you handle those micro behaviors poorly, trying to recover from them takes much longer, many multiples longer, than what it took to say the negative or inappropriate thing to begin with. And that's a horrible waste of time. That when you find yourself having said something that you could have really easily pre-calibrated before you said it, you're going to spend 30 minutes trying to recover from 30 seconds of a bad introduction or a bad initial part of your conversation. And I hate wasting time. And that to me would be a terrible waste of time.
Who is this book designed for? I mentioned the fact it's used, and you've taught business leaders effectively how to use this strategy. When you think about it, we're all in a position, aren't we, where we're asking for something, we're asking for help, we're asking for a favor of some kind, and we could all use this concept.
I would hope so. I certainly, kind of raising my awareness of all my interactions, I try to think about what I'm going to say before I interact with anyone, whether it's someone in a retail environment, a waiter or waitress in a restaurant, people at work, students in my classes. just a little bit of effort to think before I speak can make a big difference. And I'm following the advice of my grandmother, right? Who always said, please, Artell, think before you speak. And I think that that's actually, that's really what it is. It's that behavior which can make the biggest difference.
Yeah, we say micro behaviors, and that really sums it up, doesn't it? You find yourself, and you mentioned that dealing with customer service. I'm upset. I want my money back. I want something. I've just been wronged. And you're worried about getting that out rather than saying something that maybe will lay the groundwork to get your money back or to get compensation of some kind. Our guest on the program, Artell Smith, Artell. The book is No Time to Waste. His website, very simple, Artell Smith, notimetowaste.com. Book available at Amazon, all of the usual places. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. What is micro behavior, and compare it to the other behaviors? How is this different?
Yeah. So you and I and everyone else who's listening, when we go through our day, we can describe a series of behaviors if someone questioned us at the end of the day, right? I went here, I talked to this person, then I went there and I talked to that person. That's a very macro behavioral view of what happens during the course of a day. The micro behavioral view is, I went to this place, I engaged with a customer service agent whose name was Cynthia. And my first 30 seconds with Cynthia was inquiring about how her day was going and thanking her for taking the time to talk to me. So the micro behavior is just that subset of a very large number of behaviors that happen during the course of anybody's day.
You know, it's interesting. You talk about the fact that if you do this in a negative way, that's really hard to overcome, isn't it? You can't sort of go back and erase that momentarily. It takes a lot of verbal footwork before you go back and maybe clear the slate a little bit.
Well, sometimes you have to turn around and walk away.
Yes.
And hope that you talk to someone else with a little bit of pre-calibration. Fancy word, pre-calibration. It's just the idea of thinking before you're speaking, practicing a little bit in your head. That can go a long way. And once you've established a positive framework, or let's even say a positive foundation for a conversation, everything else goes so much more smoothly.
It seems we always consider big things versus small things. For a period, we went through this focus on the big picture. I don't sweat the small stuff. Are you saying that sometimes we really need to sweat the small stuff? Maybe not a lot, but just give it some thought before you jump into the big thing.
Yeah, what a great way to describe it. So let's think about something that's a big thing, right? When someone who's coming up to retirement is planning for retirement, they think about big things. How much am I putting in my 401k? What's Social Security going to pay me? What kind of savings do I have to have? Those are all very big things. But the truth of the matter is, if I really want to understand what I should be investing in and I have a financial advisor, I should be really attentive to the relationship with that advisor. And make sure that every time I interact, I have something positive to say. I have a good, solid curiosity in our conversation, because I really want that big thing to work out well. I want him or her to be the best financial advisor possible. I don't want to be the difficult client. I want to be the great client he looks forward or she looks forward to speaking to.
When you talk about micro behaviors, our initial thought, I think, is verbal. What we say before we go into the reason that we're talking with them. Can it be something as simple as body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's something called the Moravian rule in my line of work in organizational communication, and basically what that suggests is that over half of the way someone interprets you is based on the body language. And so coming in with let's call it a storm cloud face, with a set, rigid facial expression, that is easily interpretable by almost anyone who sees you. Whereas coming in with a more neutral or positive expression or body language that indicates you're open for whatever's going to happen next, people interpret that as, oh, I'm not in trouble. I'm actually now going to be able to help someone who is just as interested in the relationship as I am.
You're listening to This Week in America. Our guest today is Artell Smith. He's the author of the book No Time to Waste. His website, Artell Smith, notimetowaste.com. Book available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the usual places. His website as well. And we've got all this on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Why is it important for leaders and managers to master this art of micro behaviors?
There has been a lot of research done in the last, well, I'm going to say 10, 15 or more years on what it is that engages an employee in the workplace. How is morale developed? How is organizational culture developed? And my proposition here to managers and leaders is that every single one of your behaviors contributes to either a positive or negative view of the organization. And when you walk that logic down the road, just a little distance, an individual who is highly engaged, highly motivated, has high morale, they actually work to the benefit or for the benefit of the organization, feel good about the work that they're doing, like the people that they work with because they are exhibiting positive micro behaviors. So I think this is about organizational performance. It's the smallest piece potentially of organizational performance in that it starts with a little bit of behavior, but when expanded to a larger context, it affects the way you think about the people you work with and the place you work.
How should leaders, managers create maybe a renewed focus on their micro behaviors? Maybe an initial focus for some, but a renewed focus for others. It's probably, if you don't work at it, you sort of lose the art maybe over a period of time. How do you go back and refocus and put the emphasis on how you begin?
My simple answer to that is that leaders and managers need to exhibit curiosity about the individual they're forming or building or maintaining a relationship with. So curiosity can start with very simple things like, how's your day been going? How do you feel about this project? Gosh, I'm really glad that we have a chance to work together. What are your thoughts? It's that curiosity that opens up the door to a much larger conversation. So if I were to coach a manager or a leader right here, I would say, if you are having a troubling patch in terms of a relationship with someone, turn yourself around a couple of times and be curious about what really that person needs in order to be successful. So I would go with demonstrate curiosity.
And probably, how about those Packers never hurts up there in your neck of the woods either.
Completely.
That's great at getting somebody into the conversation.
If you start with the Packers, you may never get to any other part of the conversation.
Well, that's true. You spend a half an hour and you're still talking about the Sunday football game. Right. So you should probably limit that. Use that on select occasions. What's the benefit to organizations if leaders and managers become proficient in this? What's the payoff for them? What result will they see if they start really focusing on micro behaviors?
Yeah, this is let's call it a cousin of the earlier question, in that my belief is that everyone who labors for a living within an organization has the opportunity to choose every single day whether they're going to give their best to the organization or something that's less than that. And when a manager greets and interacts with an employee in a positive way, you get better performance from that individual. And the collection of all the people who are on your team giving a little bit better and more committed performance manifests itself in the organizational benefit. So that's my feeling on how that really helps an organization. And in the long run, if you've ever talked to people who work for an organization whose managers and leaders practice this, they are, in the long run, very successful.
Our guest on the program, Artell Smith. His book is No Time to Waste, Microbehaviors, Leveraging the Little Things to Become a Better Leader. You'll find the book wherever books are sold and at his website, artellsmith, notimetowaste.com. It feels like the concept of microbehaviors is linked to other good management practices. What are the primary connections in your view? How is this all connected?
The essential connection to me is that managers and leaders spend their day doing a great many things. They deal with process, they deal with technology, they deal with outcomes and goals and objectives, they deal with relationship management. Microbehaviors is not purely the purpose is not only to build the relationship, the purpose is to attend to the work of the organization. So if I'm a manager who is watching over complicated process, maybe in a manufacturing environment, maybe in a professional services environment, my head is occupied with a lot of the details of things that must get done in order for the company or organization to succeed. Along the way, meaning along the way of doing the work that a manager must do, when they practice positive microbehavioral discussions, they will be more successful in all the other things they do as a manager. So it's not an isolated, I'm talking to, William on my team, or I'm talking to Betty on my team, or Jasmine, or whoever it might be. It is, I'm talking to them in the context of the work. And if I use that microbehavioral mindset to always have a positive tone, then the manager can be more successful with all the other things that they need to accomplish.
What's the best advice for managers who want to make a change in their micro behaviors right now, today? They've read the book, they may be listening to the conversation, and it's like, that makes sense. That's something that's so simple, I've overlooked it. I never had a grandmother give me the advice that Artell's grandmother did, but it's great advice. I want to implement that. Give me a little bit of strategy, what we can do right away to implement this concept.
Yeah, I would say if someone were listening to this conversation and were headed back to a meeting in their organization, I would encourage them first to slow down. Don't run into the interaction, whether it's an individual or a meeting, thinking that you have all of the words worked out in your head. Slow down, consider the context, consider the people, and then begin to interact. If there's anything that I've cautioned managers and leaders more about than any other one thing, it is the tendency to feel like, almost paradoxically, that they're wasting time if they attend to the little things. They want to jump right into that big thing. And the problem is you can waste an awful lot of time when you jump in too quickly and say the wrong thing. So just slow down a little bit, contemplate, and then start exhibiting that curiosity we referenced earlier.
And you save time because you don't have to go back and do it again because you messed it up the first time. And that's interesting. How often in business, maybe in real life as well, do we create additional problems trying not to waste time by hurrying? How do we need to slow down, take a deep breath before we do a lot of things that we do now just to get them out of the way?
Yeah, we as a culture, we tend to like the notion of everybody should be in motion all the time. And it's fine. It's a great philosophy to be in motion all the time, but it doesn't mean that everything, the moment you think something, it should roll out of your mouth. If you contemplate just a little bit, you're going to be in motion and you're going to get the stuff done you need to, but you'll do it in a way that doesn't set everyone else's teeth on edge, and you can have a positive impact on those around you.
The book is No Time to Waste, Microbehaviors, Leveraging the Little Things to Become a Better Leader by Artell Smith. Not really in the book, but I want to throw this out there as we're talking about that. Trying to multitask. We maybe rush through 4 or 5 different things and praise ourselves for doing it. I just accomplished all those. Not quite sure of the quality of the work, but I got through with those. How does multitasking enter into this whole phase of microbehaviors?
Yeah, so psychologists, I'm not trained as a psychologist, but I certainly read their research and use it regularly in the classroom environment. Psychologists will tell you, and scientists who study the mind will tell you, that multitasking is a myth. That what we do is we trick ourselves into believing that we're paying attention to 4 things at the same time. All we're really doing is quickly switching from one thing to another.
Yes.
And the behavioral characteristic is called partial attention. So I'm partially paying attention to one thing, then I stop. Then I partially pay attention to another thing, and then I stop. And I can go through my whole day like that, a little partial attention here and there and everywhere. The problem is, without the actual focus on one thing, what you really think is important, you will not get it done efficiently. You end up with 70% of all of those things that you're trying to do and sub-optimizing your effort.
And I find I have to reload when I go back to do that. It's not I'm just jumping back in and immediately picking up where I left off. It's like I've got to think this through as to what I was doing. One of the chapters in the book is microbehaviors and diversity, equity, and inclusion, something we're talking a lot about now. How does microbehaviors fit into that concept, those programs?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And I included the chapter primarily to help managers and leaders to understand that whoever they're interacting with has grown up in a different place, has a different mindset, has different religious backgrounds and experiences, may have different linguistic and geographical experiences. And this moment of reflection allows you to consider who that whole person is. Where do they come from? What's important to them? What are the things I could and should be curious about? And how do I calibrate my language differently so that I'm being not only the positive person I'm hoping to be, but I'm making a connection with that individual? And it does, the notion of DEI, which has unfortunately become a political it's a political acronym that's been thrown around. I think what we need to do as managers is to say, look, everybody's different. I want to honor what the differences are. I want to be cognizant of them, and I'm going to build a relationship with you differently than I would build it with someone else. Just think about that. How do you do that? That's really my emphasis in that chapter.
And when you think about it, micro is a term that you could use for many different concepts. Is that something we've maybe overlooked by not sweating the small stuff for decades upon decades? That we could go back and do micro with just about everything and better lay a foundation for what it is we're attempting to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm really big on the notion of you need a solid foundation to build anything good. And while you need strategy, right?
Yes.
You need to understand the broad direction you're going. Are we going west, north, east, or south? All of those things still have to happen. But when you build your own interactions on the small behaviors that make you who you are, that will allow you to accomplish the big things more efficiently. And back to where we started, you will waste less time.
And that is the name of the book, No Time to Waste, Microbehaviors, Leveraging the Little Things to Become a Better Leader by Artell Smith, receiving rave reviews as it should. This book is so well written. You'll find information, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your neighborhood bookstore can order it. You can go to Artell's website, artellsmith.notimetowaste.com, and we've got all of those links as well. What are you working on now? This is a home run with this book. What are you working on now?
Well, my second book is coming out next month, actually. The book is called Engage, Coach, Develop, which is a simple strategy for improving performance and deepening relationships with individuals and with teams. It's not a managerial model, it is a philosophy. How do you engage with individuals? How do you coach them? How do you develop them? And it's one of the three most appreciated things that research tells us individuals are interested in. So that book is coming out next month. And thank you for asking the question. It's been a passion of mine over the last year or so.
Well, looking forward to that. Hopefully we can talk about that as well. Really enjoyed our conversation today. No Time to Waste, Microbehaviors, Leveraging the Little Things to Become a Better Leader. You'll find the book available at all of the usual places. I thank KingPagesPress.com, the author's marketing consultant, for arranging our conversation today. Artell, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can continue this. So much wisdom in you and your grandmother during the course of the conversation today. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure also. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The book by Artell Smith is No Time to Waste. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We're back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.